Hello, welcome back to CAIRNCAST. So the music started. Can't afford music. Thank you for tuning back in. If you are tuning back in, might be nobody. We're back for another interesting discussion in 20 minutes. This would be perfect for a wee lunch break, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be ideal.
There is a guy who does a podcast that is like that. But, good topic this week. We're going to discuss how to get hired in your favourite specialty cafe.
Yep.
Doesn't have to be us. Could be anyone else's. But something we notice happen relatively frequently is obviously people reaching out being like, hey, are you guys hiring? Or messaging on DMs quite often being like, hey, you're looking for staff. And I guess we wanted to offer up some of our wisdom on how to best approach, getting those jobs. Something I hear quite often, especially in specialty coffee, is that it's quite hard to get on that ladder if you haven't had a job in it before.
Yes.
And I kind of get that.
Yeah.
Like one of the fundamentals for, especially if we're looking for a barista, is like, do they have experience?
Yep.
And
It's huge, yeah.
It's like a double-edged sword. It's like sometimes you don't want them to have so much experience that they're not malleable to like the way that you do stuff. Because we do talk quite a lot about like our culture of coffee at Cairngorm, and like when we're thinking about training, it's like, well, the way we train is maybe not reflective of every other business.
Right.
But so sometimes it's good when someone doesn't have a huge amount of experience because you can kind of get them started early doors on like the way that we do things.
Yeah.
But it definitely is a roadblock if someone wants to get into a barista job, and I can totally understand that. So I guess the question is like, what are the methods that someone can adopt to try and get a job?
Yeah.
As a barista, I suppose.
You have to be interested really in what you're applying to, right?
Definitely.
You can't. I think recently a lot of people want to become baristas because they want to produce really pretty latte art, which is great. But then you have a disconnect of people who like want to be baristas for that purpose rather than like people who are genuinely interested in coffee.
Yeah.
And I think,
yeah,
getting
definitely.
people who are interested in the product is like very important.
Yeah. So I guess they have to, in some way or another, in the kind of moment of reaching out, try and explain that they have an interest in
and having
coffee in general.
having like a passion or an interest in where you're applying, I think is key.
Yeah. Like something so we used to do a kind of Survey Monkey form where it'd be like, here's 10 questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually got this from Colin Harmon at 3FE. I didn't get it from him, but I saw him doing it. And I was like, that's genius. Because what that does is filter out people who are not that interested. Because like if you're not happy to answer 10 questions to get a job, then you're probably not really the kind of person
Actually that invested, yeah.
So I guess that's one way of trying to make sure those people are interested.
Yeah.
But one of the questions we did when we had that was like, what is your favorite place where's your favorite place to get coffee?
Mm-hmm.
Or like, what coffee roasters do you buy coffee from?
Yeah.
And it's quite tough again, I guess, if you're not working in specialty coffee, because I guess once you start working in specialty coffee, you kind of open that Pandora's box and you get fully engaged, and then that's when you start feeling confident to go into lots of different specialty cafes. But the people who are already like, I've got a great cafe nearby who they serve this coffee that I really like, that shows an interest.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of what I suppose is what we're looking for. Is like, don't just reach out and be like, hey, have you any jobs going? Be like, hey, I've never worked in specialty coffee, but I bought an AirPress. I got an AirPress for Christmas. I make coffee every morning with it. I like to use this coffee because of this, because it's I find it sweeter than going to Starbucks. Or show like that kind of interest.
Right, and there's like such a willingness to learn and engagement and passion. I think that's
definitely
really important. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like if you're engaging with your local community, like for us, if in Edinburgh, if you are able to say, hey, I love going to Cult at the weekends or something.
Yeah.
I went to Lowdown and I had this crazy coffee.
Right.
even if you don't know what it is. And that's kind of what made me really interested in coffee. It shows that like you kind of understand the ballpark of what we're trying to do here with specialty coffee.
Yeah.
I think that's like super important. If you already have experience in these things and you're like, I've worked in X, Y, and Z places, still isn't necessarily for me enough to be like, you deserve for me to start a conversation with you about a job.
Yeah.
Like, I still think there needs to be like a bit of legwork to show an interest in our company specifically.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess like, how do you do that? Like, I mean, I was talking before about cover letters and how that's almost like a forgotten art. And, you know, the messages that I get directed to us specifically being like, Dear Cairngorm Coffee, or, you know, I've been following your progress for a while. I'm like really interested in working with your team. It seems like nice people. Like, that makes you go so high up the ladder, doesn't it?
When I was applying to jobs when I moved here, I obviously didn't have any experience going to any shops in Edinburgh because I hadn't been to any of them. But something that stood out to me about Cairngorm was like the content that you make.
This.
Yeah, because it was like there was nothing else to judge any of the other roasters on, because how would I know? I've not tried any of the other coffee.
True.
So it's like having that connection. That was a reason that I wanted to work for this company, was because
that's cool.
Yeah.
But I guess then sort of
you'd
like
created.
explaining that to business, like you probably did. I can't remember. I was probably like, yes, thanks so much. There you go.
Pat her back,
But I like it. Like that is key. I suppose it's like, at the very least, and like I do this with wholesale customers, which, not to give the game away secrets, but it's like if you've never met someone or you've never been to their cafe, the very least you can do is go onto their Instagram, see like what they're about, what they're doing. If they've just got a new coffee machine, then when you reach out to them and you're like, hey, how's your new coffee machine? You know, it shows like genuine interest, shows you've done a bit of research, and that isn't enough to sell coffee, but it's enough to kind of spark some kind of rapport.
There's like a genuine interest why you're reaching out or why you're interested in working with those people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
For sure. So there's cover letters, genuine interest. One that I think people also maybe don't realize is that you don't have to work in a specialty coffee shop to get specialty coffee experience. Like there's obviously training that can be done off the shelf. You know, in Edinburgh, certainly, you know, the likes of Brew Lab, the likes of Machina, probably like lots more, but you know, Artisan, you know, they do brew classes, they do espressos. We've experimented with that in 2023. We'd love to do more of it, but you know, trying to present to someone like, hey, I've never worked in a cafe, but I have self-funded this skill set that shows that I am financially invested in like getting better. Or that to me shows like a real genuine like interest, and I think that's
it doesn't even have to be like financial investment. Like time is really valuable as well. It's like there's so many resources online that you can learn from as well.
Just I'm thinking like as a side note to this, getting a job, like getting hired in a specialty cafe is one thing, but getting hired in a roastery is like
it's so hard,
more challenging, isn't it? Like I don't know what the best tact for that is, but I know that we've had people, and like this is a great way of doing it, but it's interesting that we've not adopted it. But people are like, oh, I don't mind coming and working for free just to like get an experience. I guess that is the right way of doing that, but I'm like, it's also tough because it takes time for us to train people then. And if they're not going to be like long term adding value to the business, it's like tough to train them. So even though they're giving their free time, and like, yes, I don't know what the best way of approaching that is. Again, I suppose with being in a specialty coffee roastery, the challenge is that you have to kind of come up through the ranks, really, I suppose.
Right.
You have to start on this level of getting in the door of a specialty cafe and then go from there. I guess the benefit of, this is like not a positive thing, but of like hospitality in general, is there is relatively swift movement of staff between shops, which means that opportunities do become available quite often in cafes.
Right.
So if you reach out to a cafe and you don't get hired, I suppose if you come back to them in a
Yeah.
few months' time.
Which is,
shows you more
consistent showing.
interest.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think that kind of again can amplify that opportunity for yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
One that's quite interesting that I was thinking about a lot is again thinking about the landscape of 2024, and you're talking about making the content having value. It's kind of like it works the other way. It's like us as employers, if we see someone who's gone to the effort of like engaging with coffee on their social media, or I've written here, create your own brand. I do think like, that's something that we've tried to encourage staff to do. And I think it's not necessity, but I think it gives you like a really good stepping stone if you want to really make it a career.
Yeah,
To
definitely.
kind of, start building, like take things into your own hand. Like, start talking about coffee. Like it doesn't matter if you're wrong. It doesn't matter if you're incorrect. So creating your own brand is everyone already puts content out there, but like there's I remember Aerodepresso is a perfect example of this. Like Matt Cowie, like gave himself a fun tag. Like people know him as Aerodepresso,
Yeah.
which is pretty funny. But he's built himself a brand. It's helped him evolve through Cairngorm into dark arts now, and he now is continuing doing content with him. And it's like it grows arms and legs, and I think it's important. I think naturally, if you want to be involved with like young, cool, vibrant startups, being comfortable doing content is a great way.
Yeah, it's like a necessary evil almost
Yeah.
at this point. Yeah.
So I think like build your own brand. I think it's really important, and like it doesn't have to be something that you commit like loads of time to, but if it's almost like a portfolio of like your interest in coffee, where it is like buy some coffee from local roasters, take a photo of it, of you making it, like it's a perfect way. We used to, it was again on that survey, we used to put like, if you're happy to share, like what's your Instagram tag,
Oh yeah.
and like not everyone did it.
Yeah.
Weirdly, again in 2024, it's like it's invasive, but like if we can see that you have made a coffee before,
But when
makes it
yeah,
more enticing for us to engage with you.
when people email interest in applying and they do attach their Instagram, obviously that makes them stand out like already.
Yeah.
Obviously creates an edge.
Showing there's nothing to hide.
Yeah, well, if they have a coffee account or they are proving, I can make this latte art, shows a base level of knowledge already.
Well, I want to build my own brand as well in 2024. Like, I just think everyone should be striving to do that. I don't think that's something to be afraid of, and something that there's no barriers to content, like, apart from a phone.
Yeah.
Or a camera. Yeah, you probably need a phone, don't you? But who doesn't have a smartphone?
Yeah, in this day and age.
I'm actually going to get cancelled for saying people have smartphones now. I can't even. I don't know. This is my biggest fear, is getting cancelled. I'm like, I can't. So that is, yeah. I'm scared to say anything now. But no, I think like, when we have seen people coming through our ranks, something that we have encouraged them to do is to build their brand.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, I think that there's mutual benefit for business and for individual. Certainly, if in coffee, if you're not talking about getting hired in a specialty cafe, you're talking about building your career. I think it's a really important thing. When I see the applicants, the people who are going to be doing the heats for like Scottish BC or like World BC, well, the first thing I do is like look them up on Instagram. I'm like intrigued, where do they work? Like, what are they about? Like, what level are they at?
Yeah.
I'm obviously very invested in coffee, so that's maybe not a normal thing, but I think like, as I say, it's almost like a portfolio you're presenting. It's quite
definitely
quite cool.
Helps progress as well if you were ever to move on as well. Makes you more marketable to future people, future employers.
For sure. Is there anything else? Any other tips we get?
I'm sure there's loads.
Don't be a weirdo. Yeah, sure. Don't be a weirdo. Don't like make as much coffee as you can. There's no
be yourself.
There's no barrier to making coffee. No, of course there is, but like just be inquisitive. Invest as much time as you can, I suppose, in learning.
Yeah.
You were doing a thing recently. You were asking questions about for building our training portfolio or modules. Where are there any good blogs? Like, where do people find out stuff? And there's so many different blogs. Like,
Yeah.
that's how I started in coffee. That's where I kind of built the confidence to start a cafe, was through reading Strive for Tone. Before Barista Hustle, there was Matt Perger posting in St. Ali.
Perfect Daily Grind.
Perfect Daily Grind.
Classic.
Tamper Tantrum, like podcasts. Like, absorb as much information as you can. It will set you apart from like anyone else who's not done that. Like, it's quite easy. If you can write a cover letter and put in that cover letter to a cafe, like, I watch all of Lance Hedrick's videos, or I really enjoy watching Jim Hoffman talk about Nespresso capsules. Whatever it is.
I've listened to all of the CAIRNCAST.
Oh, that's a good idea. That'll definitely get you top of the pile. But I think, like, there are things that you can do which don't cost money, like you say, that if you're generally interested in getting into coffee, these should be things that you intrinsically want to do anyway.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's going back to your point about being genuinely interested. It's like, well, if you're genuinely interested, then that's quite a bare minimum thing you could kind of try and tackle. So few people do, though, which is why actually it's not that. It should be. You should be able to get a job in a cafe quite easily if you do these things, I reckon. But could be wrong. Don't hold it.
Yeah, I think like working in a cafe is such a great environment. So I think there are people that probably want to work in a cafe for the environment versus because they're interested in coffee. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely.
So it might,
So
not everyone applying might have a great interest in coffee.
Yeah, true. Yeah, true. And like, it's not the be all end all of. Yeah, you don't have to be like the best barista to work in Melville Place or Bonnie and Wild.
Right.
Obviously, it helps, but I think you can still be interested in coffee.
Or being interested in the company that you're applying for, at least, and like wanting to be a part of that brand and that company.
Yeah.
Is obviously like an essential.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But like, I get that. I suppose, like, I'm trying to think of the ladder, the step between never having worked in a specialty cafe before and getting into Cairngorm, as an example.
Yeah.
Not like, again, we hire people that don't have any experience.
Yeah.
But to give yourself the best opportunity, having not done that, it's like the CV with no cafes on it at all, no hospitality on it at all, isn't going to be the reason you don't get hired.
Right.
It's more likely to be that you've not put enough thought and effort into, like, who am I speaking to here? Or our interviewing policy is very relaxed. I was hearing Cat and Cloud talk about theirs, and I'm like, he was saying, one of the hardest things about interviewing is you have to get used to sitting in silence for a minute while people think of answers. I can't sit in silence for 3 seconds without saying something. I'm like, can you imagine?
That is.
I can sit here for a minute while someone thinks of something to say. I'd be like, oh God, I feel so bad for them. But I guess that's probably not good to be trying to help people too much.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
But yeah, like, I guess if you can show up to an interview and you're like, a bit about the company you're
definitely.
interviewing for, or the job at least. Then.
Like, asking questions, I think, is massive. Like, anytime I would interview for a job, I would have questions prepared because I am interested and I want to know more about that company. But if you're like, no, I don't have any questions, then does that really show interest in wanting to know more about where you're applying to? Yeah,
that's a good point. What kind of questions would you ask?
Like, when you interviewed me, I just like asked about your experience and like, how did Cairngorm start? Because there's some information, but not like a ton of information on the website.
I remember your interview being quite like, you did turn it into like I was trying to sell the company more.
You were. I don't think I barely talked.
That's what I mean. I can't sit in silence. So awkward. I think the shop was closed at that point as well. Yeah. And it was like two of us sitting in Frederick Street.
Yeah. Yep. You weren't there.
Were you there?
No, that wasn't. We had already met.
No, we have like 12 interviews. So.
Yeah.
Need to make sure.
Making sure, yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that is a good point. I do think like being inquisitive is not a bad
But if you have a general idea of like the company, then you probably do have questions that you want to know more about.
Yeah.
right? If you're going to be there, then
Yeah, because I guess the majority of organizations want to hire people who show that they want to have longevity within a business.
yeah, definitely. Yeah,
So you might as well try and mitigate any concerns at that point to prove you're
a good
willing
fit.
to. Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go. That came around quickly. Thank you for listening. I hope that's been of some benefit to
Yeah.
somebody. If you are looking for jobs, we're not actually hiring right now. But it's always worth reaching out with some of these tips in mind. It's your best chance.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions, if you have any suggestions for our community of people who might watch this video looking for advice, put them in the comments so they can find them. And feel free to ask more questions on stuff you would like us to talk about.
Definitely.
Because we love to talk, apparently. Cool. Thank you very much. Stay safe. I'm going to come up with something better.